Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up
All that jam.
All That Jam, Quick Hit. DJ Brownie Origin Story.
today. We have Mark from the Disco Biscuits and maybe more infamously Conspirator with us. How we doing today, Mark?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. We're doing good. Always it's a Tuesday. You're coming up on almost 10 years since you first tried your hand at DJing back in 2014 on Jam Cruise. So can we talk a little bit about what happened there, how that started, and your progression to where we are today? Because I believe there's a tour coming up too.
That's right. That's exactly right. Um, so I did 2 DJ shows. I'll put that in quotations before that. One was in Asheville. It was after a Disco Biscuit show, and it wasn't. It was just like my computer and iTunes, but like they were like, we want you guys to come over and DJ at this club or whatever. And I remember I like walked in. I never even took my backpack off, which I felt like was kind of cool at the time. I was like, my backpack staying on, and I just worked my way through like an iTunes playlist. And then the next time they asked me to DJ, they being the DJ gods, I was asked to DJ at the Wells Fargo Center at set break during a Fish show. And said likewise, I had no idea how to DJ, but I wanted to take on that kind of experience. And so I went in and I played like a bunch of like, Daft Punk and Mastercraft and whatever was in my DJ playlist, Spangle and right? But I just did it out of iTunes there as well. And so those were my first DJ shows. Then to get prepared for the Jam Cruise, of course, now I'm a DJ. So Jam Cruise asked me to come on and DJ in their nightclub there at the top of Jam Cruise. And so to get prepared for that, I started to learn how to work on a controller, which, if you're like a real DJ, like a vinyl DJ or even a CDJ DJ, they kind of still to this day, look down on controller DJs, right? So like, so there's steps, there's a hierarchy of DJs, right? I think the hierarchy is people who play out of like their iPod, right, or their phone. And then there's controller DJs right above that, and then there's maybe like CDJ DJs, and then there's vinyl DJs. The top rung of DJing is beat matching on vinyl, right? The way somebody described it to me recently, Wade, my DJ coach, he said, think about it like this: if you spent 25 years learning how to play jazz, and then a piece of equipment came along that made it so that any old person can pick this equipment up and suddenly be great at playing jazz without putting the time in. That's what vinyl DJs look at like controller DJs as, because this equipment came along and it's got a sync button on it. It makes it so that you don't have to really put the time in to learn how to beat match. You can just hit the sync and it goes to the right tempo and you could listen and the stuff's playing right on top of each other without any flam or whatever it is. And so that's what I moved on to. I moved on to being the second rung up the ladder of DJing, the controller DJ. And I got to tell you, I didn't even know how to use the sync button at that first gig. I had to like try to figure out how to beat match using a controller because I just didn't like, I didn't have enough time before the gig to figure out what order of buttons you have to hit in order to get this track to sync to this track and then turn that off so that this track can then sync to the next track that you bring in. So I was actually, I was beat matching on day one on a controller, and it was a disaster. I mean, I look back to the first DJ show that I had, and it's evidence to me that even using a controller, there's skill that goes into DJing. You know, first of all, the number one part of it is picking tracks that people are going to want to listen to, right? That is what the job is, right? The job is choosing songs to curate a vibe. And so I had a lot of songs, and like looking back at my like original Jam Cruise playlist, which I still have on my computer, Jam Cruise 14. I think it's just funny to think of like what I thought was an appropriate set of DJing music. I didn't really know house music that well at that time, right? That I think like so much of the job is in preparation, right? Like so much of DJing is like in how much time you put into preparing a show, like how much research you put into like what the new music that came out in the last 3 months is, what's good, what's not good. It's really taste making. You have to decide when you're hearing something, is this good, right? Do I have the ability to decide in real time what's good for the masses, right? Like, of course, like I know what I like, right? But are there going to be a couple hundred people at the show? Are they going to like what I like? Is it going to be is there going to be like kind of widespread appeal to the music that I'm choosing? So I think like I put a lot of time into that part of DJing, listening to tracks, listening fully through the whole entire track, because sometimes you'll pick a track just based off of like the intro and maybe the drop of the beginning of the song and move on, and then you'll be playing it, and as it plays out, some things will happen that you didn't even know were there, and it's like now the song's breaking down and there's like a rhythmic thing that doesn't make any sense with the song because the producer wanted to do something completely like, you know, unique or different. Like I've had situations like that. There's a Jamie Jones track called Animal where it's like 9 minutes long and I didn't listen to the whole entire thing before the first time I played it. And there was like a part like 8 minutes in or 7 minutes in where the whole thing starts breaking down rhythmically into a complete and utter chaos. And I thought my computer was glitching out. I didn't know what was happening the first time. I thought my controller wasn't working, but it was just like a unique creative thing he did. So looking back on that first gig, I always try to remind myself about that first gig before every run of shows I do or every show that I do to remind myself just how far in the 10 years of DJing I've come in terms of being able to curate a great show and a great experience for people, right? And this last Jam Cruise was my 9 years anniversary of DJing. I did a 5-hour set and a 6-hour set, and like just getting at 50 years old, getting through 5 hours without going to the bathroom is like a really big, you know, it's like a feat in itself, because you're like you want to be drinking and staying hydrated, but like, you know, like by the end of the sets, like you have to pee more than you've ever had to pee in your entire life. It's like, you know, that's definitely a part of like a marathon DJ set that I get a little bit of anxiety about, you know, but just like making sure that for like the 3 hours before you go up there, don't drink anything, right? And then like, you know, like go to the bathroom 3 times right before the set starts, and then just like you get like a couple of hours in. But yeah, I put on these shows on Jam Cruise this year they were like epic marathon shows that went through basically, you know, 12, 13 hours of music over 2 shows, which encompasses much of my catalog, right? And I was pulling out a lot of stuff from Jam Cruise 14 set. It was like kind of like a retrospective. Here's like a history of my whole DJing career, right? The best of those songs, which are now dated, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's been a process. It's been a long process to get where I'm at, which where I'm at right now, I'd say is just getting comfortable to the point where I feel like I could go out and play a full entire tour, right? And this last couple of weeks, I was playing with Lettuce, And that was a totally different thing. They didn't want me to go above 110 beats per minute. So, and they wanted me to play like 90s hip hop classics, right? So I had to go out on stage for 3 nights performing a style of music that I've never performed before, and kind of trying to like match up. It's harder with hip hop because with house music, there's a minute of drums at the beginning of every song and a minute of drums at the end of every song. They like make it easy so that you can just match your drum beat to whatever song is going on before, and then you could kind of mix the two together and then mix out. With hip hop, the songs kind of start with music in them. Every single one of them starts with a beat and with the music on top of it. So you really have to have like a knowledge of what keys the songs are in. So before Lettuce, I spent like a week going through all of these songs, analyzing them for like tempo and key, and figuring out how in my software to annotate what key everything is in, so that I wasn't smashing something that's like an A right on top of something that's in B flat, where it's going to be grading, right? And working your way through, you can't stay in A the whole entire time, but working your way from A to D, and like then D to D minor, and then like D minor to F. And that was the job last week. And that was like a whole different thing that I've never really done before for DJing. So it's like every time I go out, even 9 years in, there's something new happening, right? And now this new thing that I want to do is I bought a new controller halfway through the Lettuce show. My old controller started glitching out and not working at the first Lettuce show. So the next day I called Guitar Center and I had them overnight mail me a new controller for the next couple of shows. And then when I finished that tour, I immediately made a call to some people to see if I could rent some CDJs so that I could set them up in my house at the beginning of December, and put the time in there so that moving forward, I could just show up with a USB, right? That's what real DJs do. They show up with their computer, a hard drive, and a bunch of USB sticks that have all of their music on it. And then you show up and there's CDJs already at the club. That's the standard. And you just plug the USB in and everything pops up. I've done it a couple of times, but it's different equipment. It's a whole different thing. It's a little harder to use. It's a little bit more technical, and you have to put the time in, right? And I'm a bass player, right? And I haven't even mastered my instrument yet, right? I counted recently. I've probably put about, I'm 50. I've probably put about 7,000 or 8,000 hours into practicing bass, but I'm not at 10,000 yet, right? I haven't done my 10,000 hours. So 3,000 hours is a lot to catch up on, right? To get to where I feel like I've mastered the bass. And so when I get into like working on DJ stuff, there's no way I'm going to be able to put 10,000 hours into like beat matching and DJing. It's just like I'll be dead before that happens. But when I start to think like, how can I do this? Then sort of in my head, I'm like, hey man, you got 2,500 more hours to put into the bass. Like go do that right now. And, and use some of the DJ shortcuts, because you still have a different, a discipline that you're trying to master, which is your main gig.
If you are enjoying All That Jam, please like and subscribe to our social media channels at All That Jam Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or visit our website, allthatjampod.com. Make sure to sign up for our email list and tune in every week for new episodes.
Also, look for full interviews on our YouTube channel. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long.